Welcome to another video, IS-F Supercharged edition. So I've had this supercharged, I built this a few years ago, I think maybe 4 years ago. I put on 6,000 miles and I've been having a problem with the belts shredding. So to begin, you have to, well, let's show you the new belt first. So it's a Gates Fleet Runner K080770HD. This is like the length, some weird formula for the length. But this is, you have to cut 2 ribs off to make it fit the setup. I don't know why there's not a belt that's made specifically for this length, or why the system wasn't made for the length of everything. So you have to essentially just cut 2 ribs off, and I mean, it's going to weaken the rest of the belt, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, if you're cutting the belt, removing 2 ribs, it's just inherently less strong. The original belt that came with this kit was a black belt, but it was too long, and so it would slip on the supercharger pulley, and you would lose boost on the top end. So this fixes that problem, but now every 1,000 to 1,500 miles, I'm shredding belts. So figured it'd be a good chance to show how to remove everything, how to replace the belt, and hopefully there's some updated parts or bracketry or something that will prevent this in the future. I don't know. But before we get into that, in case you're just tuning in now, I have a essentially 1,200 horsepower Mitsubishi Mirage. I put down 940 all-wheel horsepower. And it's running 6466 turbo, about 50 pounds of boost. Wastegate is just shut, so it just makes all the boost it can. I've had this car, or an iteration of it, since like the late 90s. So I've been tuning and building Mitsubishis and Toyotas since the late 90s. So I've also got this 92 ES, super rare because it's a manual transmission, factory manual. And I had big plans with this thing to make like tubular headers and a turbo and all that stuff. Onto these rims though, these are factory NK coach wheels from the ES. So I had them powder coated, cleaned up all nice. But yeah, this thing, ice cold AC, super nice interior. Should be in a museum, honestly, but here it sits. So the IS, I installed the kit right when, like I said, a few years ago. I think it was 2020, 2021, somewhere in there. And, you know, used all the directions and followed step by step and all that. It's been fine. Like, the kit's been fine. There's been some tune issues, just getting the tune dialed in right, and then the belt issue, obviously. But other than that, the kit itself is good. I'm not saying anything bad about the kit. But there's just a few hiccups here and there. Let's just put it that way. Another issue I'm having is an injector code. I think it's 1170 or something similar. When you get in boost, in any kind of boost, the car will misfire and fall on its face and trigger a code and go into limp mode. So when I've had this issue in the past on other cars, it's been the E85 gumming up the injectors or making them sticky or whatever you want to call it. So what I think I'm going to do, when I take all these pipes off, it's going to make it easier just to swap out the port injectors, because I have another set. So literally you just pop the rail off, put in the new injectors, and you're good to go. So I'm going to try to see if that eliminates the problem, because A, it's easy to swap the injectors, and B, I already have them, and C, this pipe has to come off anyways for the belt. So I might as well just toss them in. If it works, great. If not, I'll have to dig deeper into what's causing that issue. Alright, we are back again. I lost some footage, unfortunately. Luckily it wasn't too much. I just removed a couple pipes. So this pipe basically went right there. So that has to come off exactly like that. And then this pipe just down into the intake air filter area. So with those 2 pipes off, I should be able to sneak the belt in, kind of feed it, kind of feed it down in here, and I'll get a close-up video in a second. Got to work on this pizza first. But what I was saying in the lost footage that's gone now, I don't remember, so we're just going to have to start fresh. Here's that new set of injectors I had. It's the same, the 680s or whatever size they are, 660s, 680s. I was going to put these in the Tundra, and I wanted the same size as this because, one, if something goes wrong, I can do exactly this. I have a spare set. And two, the Tundra is not going to need any more fuel than that. So, got our 100% juice apple, Capri Sun, however you say it. And our pizza. Got to fuel up on energy, nutrients. And before you work, you know, you got to have non-shaky hands and you got to be fed. This time I got hand tossed instead of the thin crust like last time. But equally as delicious. It was good. I'm going to find a couple more lights so we can get down here. Okay, so got some lighting down there. These injector harnesses are pretty cheap to replace, and the clips break on them often. The only problem is only the driver's side is available. The passenger side you can't buy anymore. It's discontinued. But what you can do is you can use the driver's side on the passenger side. Just some of the mounting clips don't line up. Like this doesn't go anywhere on the other side, but you can move that around if you want, but it functions the same. And the clips then are brand new. They're not going to break on you. So down here, if you look, you see the tensioner assembly here. So you have to stick a 1/2-inch socket in here to basically twist this and then get the belt around it. The red pulley down there is kind of like an idler pulley to guide the belt, and then further down you see the alternator. Or no, that's not the alternator. That's the bottom ribbed pulley on the supercharger bracket. So what we have to do, because if you see, look just to the right of the red pulley, you'll see how very little space there is between that water outlet to get any kind of a belt through. You're not getting a belt through that little space. It's just not happening. So we have to feed, basically make a loop out of the belt and then feed it down on top of that pulley. And then we'll wrap the belt around the lower pulley, the rib pulley, and then we'll be able to wrap it around, sneak down here. We'll be able to, hope you can see that, wrap it around, probably not. Let's get further down in here if we can. Maybe better. Anyways, you can see the crank pulley there, the ATI Special, the RR Racing kind of collaboration with the crank pulley, so we have to get the belt around that pulley. So we're going to try to do it without removing anything else, because I think this is how I did it last time. If not, we'll see. But I'm going to do that first, try to get the belt on at least situated, and then I'm going to move on to the injectors. Pretty simple too with these. I'll show you some tips and tricks to swap those out as well. Okay, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but you have to cut 2 ribs of this belt off in order for it to match. So I got to find like a sharp scissors or a razor blade or a knife or something, and then cut this off. I think this is in the lost footage, but you'll see basically. And I don't know if this has anything to do with the belt coming apart, if you're damaging the structural integrity of the belt or not, I don't know. But basically you'll see 2 ribs got to come off. So before I get this belt stuck down there, which I did one time, I got it all hooked up and I forgot to cut the ribs off. So I'll cut that and then go from there. Yeah, fun times. Okay, so as you can kind of see, I've fed the belt kind of in between that pulley, and I've popped out over here. You can see the green right down there-ish. And then I'm moving my cheapo $10 catch can, and I can get my hand down here. Once I can get my hand down there, then watch this. I can grab the belt all the way over there, and I can get it around the crank pulley. Okay, following here? So I can get it around the crank pulley. I'm trying to look at this through the camera. It's not working very well. Okay, it's kind of on. Nope, it's not. So we're gonna work this. What am I stuck on here? Ah, there we go. No, it just wasn't pulling enough slack. So we've got it around the crank pulley, and it can just be there loosely for now. No big deal. Now we have to somehow get the other part of that. This is the hardest part. We have to get the other end of that around that black idler rib pulley all the way on the bottom. Once we do that, then this belt can start to snake up towards the top. So I'll try to get that done. Okay, you see here we've got the final alignment set up. I've got the belt kind of resting on the pulley up here. I don't want to let go though. Need to find a 1/2" ratchet to turn the tensioner clockwise so we can get the back side of the belt around that red pulley. If you look down, we've got this side of the belt around the red pulley on the right, and then the other side is into the abyss on the bottom. It goes around a idler pulley, a rib pulley, and then circles around the crankshaft pulley. I was able to reach my hand all the way from the right side, right here, hand and then arm all the way across by the crank pulley, and then basically I made like a lasso or a loop, and let's fall, that's nice, a lasso or a loop out of the belt, and then I was able to kind of lasso the last pulley on the bottom, if that makes sense. You just kind of make a loop and then push it towards the pulley, and it's rigid enough that you can kind of loop it around the pulley and then pull everything tight. So hopefully that makes sense, everybody. If not, I can try to explain it more in detail some other way. But right now I gotta turn this. Alright, you'll see the most important part right here, the pizza. Still working on it. But we got a big breaker bar. We're going to turn it clockwise, and this is going to slip over this under that. So we'll see if that works as according to plan. Okay, here's the belt. Crank, crank, crank. Now it looks like there's still... It's all coming back to me now. So if you have the green belt, you need a 5mm Allen. You actually have to loosen the supercharger off of this bracket. Then once you do that, you have to lower it, get the belt on, and then get it back up and bolt it in. The original black belt that came with the kit, you did not have to do that, but again, like I said, it was too long and it would slip at higher boost. So now that I remember this quite clearly, actually, I'm going to loosen these 4 bolts, and then we're going to drop it down. Okay, you'll see that I removed the 4 bolts. Supercharger dropped down maybe a 1/2 inch. And now we can do the magic, hopefully, to get this belt on here, and I will try not to block the camera as best as I can. Okay, see? You see how this is almost on there now? Now we go clockwise, get this belt over that tensioner, then get it over the supercharger. Boom, it's on. This can kind of be a pain to get back in these bolt holes, because now it's obviously under tension from the belt. So that's a whole nother story, but it's just a matter of getting this inner ring inside of this bracket. So So I think last time it was a combination of like a pry bar over here and then kind of push it back in and it locks in. So let me see if I can get my big pry bar. Alright, here's the fun part. Put your shoulder on your breaker bar to push the tensioner. That'll take tension off the belt. Then lift the supercharger up enough that it will hopefully go into the hole. If not, you can use a bolt here to get it started. A little motivation to do so. But eventually you can get two in. If you can get two in, you can get the bottom in. And then be very careful how you tighten them. You don't want to pinch anything or strip anything out. Make sense? And I actually did on one of my previous iterations kind of strip one of these out. And I think I moved that to the top. So it's easier to change if it gets any more damaged. So it's on. Just need to tighten these four. And on to the next. You'll see this is a very nice spot here for a pry bar. You want to get as close to the pulley as you can. And you can see the supercharger moving. You're just kind of wiggling it into place while you hand tighten these bolts. So you make sure each of them are exactly where they need to be. That way none of them are going to start to strip, not tighten, or be misaligned. So you might have to go back and loosen the top ones a little bit, and then go back to the bottom, try to tighten those up, get those started, and then go back to the top. But it's just a matter of wiggling and prying until each of these can pull the supercharger back to where it's supposed to be. Okay, I've got this bottom one started. That's pretty snug. Now let's try it for this one. Here, it should go right in. Yep. So this is going to get tightened up. Very important to very gently just hand tighten each of them one at a time, just like torquing down a head or something. Just hand tighten them. Okay, now we've got all four. Don't need the pry bar anymore. You should put blue Loctite probably on these, but I've never had them come loose without Loctite, so to each their own. This bottom one tight. And this one. Okay. 30 foot-pounds, somewhere in there. All right. Now you can really see the optimal tension of this belt, what this should be. Because like I said, whatever part number the original black belt is, it's too loose, it slips. This one's got really good tension. And then you can see even where the tensioner is sitting right now, naturally. So it's kind of sitting right there. And that's good tension. That's a good belt. Job done on that. And you can see why it can only have the, you have to remove the two ribs. And then as far as alignment goes, if I'm not mistaken, the engine hasn't turned over yet, so really we have to start it and then let the belt kind of settle in, because I believe this has to go over one more rib. It has to be closer to the supercharger. So, and that'll bring that lower pulley in. See all the way down there, that pulley is kind of, it's off the pulley. That's why it has to go in one more rib. So I'll adjust that. And, well, I don't know, because if you look at the tensioner pulley here, the belt where it's at on the supercharger, it's pretty much centered on the tensioner pulley. If we bring it any more back, it's going to rub on the back side of that pulley. So this is a little concerning, unless, like I said, it just needs to spin around once to kind of align itself. But we will keep an eye on that. Actually, let me see if I can, I'm going to turn the car over, see what happens. Okay, so like I figured, I turned the car over, everything kind of aligned itself. So now we are better looking on that bottom red pulley. We are on the ribbed on the bottom. We are all the way forward on the supercharger. And then that is lining up pretty much in the center. I mean, it's a little bit forward on the tensioner pulley. That's a good view right there. So that's kind of where everything sits, right as it is. I feel like you could put a washer possibly on the tensioner pulley just to even that out. And then you can see the previous wear mark actually on that red pulley below. You can see where it's kind of lighter than the dark part in the back. And that's where the belt has been riding since day one. So that's normal where it is. And the only thing we got to be concerned about is this belt going to rub on the edges of that pulley. So we'll watch all that stuff going forward. But that's the end of that. We're good here. Now I want to swap out these port injectors. So we'll get to that and I'll show you the tips and tricks involved with doing so. It's a lot easier than you might think because a lot of stuff doesn't have to come out, but we'll get into it. Alright, for the supercharger at least, you'll need a 6mm hex because there are these spacers and long Allen bolts that hold the rail to the injector, or the intake manifold now, because the injectors are much larger than stock, they're longer. There's also a spacer on top, very long bolt, so put that somewhere safe. And right here is the second one. If I can not break anything. Okay, there we go. Nope, not in. Now we're in. Alright, you can start to see the rail already moving. That's a good sign. I'm so glad it's, well, maybe it is, I'm not going to speak too soon, but if it is the injectors that's causing the issue, hopefully it's the port injectors and not the direct injectors. But there's not much. It's not like there's a lot of other people with same problems or similar issues and they can say, oh, well, yeah, just do this or that. Or this is the problem, check this. You kind of got to figure it out yourself. That's why a lot of these kits are very DIY, and they expect you to be somewhat mechanically inclined on your own, or have a reliable shop. Okay, so now the rail is loose, and actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo this top plug, maybe. That'll give us a little bit more. Okay, not right now. The last injector is a pain because it's kind of buried. So another tip here, if you see where the end of the screwdriver is, the aluminum spacer, there's an aluminum spacer under the rail too. I used FIPG or Right Stuff or whatever to secure that spacer block to the manifold. Because if that bounces down and disappears, you're in a world of hurt. So what I'm going to do now is essentially, I'm probably going to leak. Yep, there's some fuel leakage. Just push each injector down and then it comes out of the rail. And then you just put the new one in and then that's it. Like I said though, the back one, it's kind of tight. So you're going to have to do a little bit of magic back there to swap that one. But the first three on both sides are simple, just like I did, pop them out. So I'm not going to bore you with the details. Maybe I'll do one more here just so you can see. So you push down, and it comes out of the rail, and then down into the bore. What is that? And then pull up. I'm going to inspect these under more detail, under like magnifying, to see if these screens at all are plugged up from E85 or any kind of debris. It's possible, but I don't, like I said, I don't know. So I'm going to pull the rest out on this side, and then I'll switch over to the other side. Yep. Silicone breather hose, the one that goes into your valve cover right here. Route this to a T or a Y, because your other valve cover is going to join into it. And then run another line all the way down to the transmission with a little filter breather on it. That way you will not get, if the breather's up here, you're going to get oil vapors in your vents, and it's going to smell like oil and engine inside your car. So route that breather all the way down to the bottom of the car. Alright, so I'm down to the last one. You can see this plug here, it's on its last legs. It's basically just 2 wires and then weatherproof rubber. That's okay. So what I did, I raised the fuel rail up. You don't have to remove it, and then push the injector down, and you can see the injector's just kind of hanging out down there, hopefully. Get this out of the way. Yep, right there. So it's just kind of sitting there. So how are you going to get it out? Well, needle nose. Get a long needle nose, and hopefully this doesn't break. Don't go too crazy on it. Just wiggle it, rotate it, be gentle with it. But essentially, there you go. That's how you get that out. Just like surgery. And then the same way to put it in, just drop it in there, and then you can no, don't do that. You can manipulate it where it needs to go. This is really bad. It's going to disappear. Okay, there we go. There we go. So you can manipulate it in place, out of place, but we're essentially just going to drop the new one in, and then the installation is opposite of reverse. Make sure to lubricate your O-rings because you don't want an O-ring to pinch and rip. Usually injectors come with some lubricant you can put on there and before popping into the rail. So that's it. I'm going to put the back one in first, and we'll see how the rail fits, but typically you want to get that back one on first, and then you can do the first 3. So new one's going. Kind of looks like an alien. So if you stick a borescope down your injector hole, you can inspect your valves, the ports here, and here we can see the top of the valves look pretty good. There's no carbon buildup on them, and a lot of that is from having the port injectors. If you have just direct injectors in your car, those are the ones that you hear of all sorts of horror stories with the tops of the valves getting all full of carbon. But this looks actually really good. Another thing I forgot to mention on the injectors, they actually, I don't think these come with O-rings, but you need an O-ring on the bottom here to seal against the intake manifold. I'll get you that part number in a second because you can get it at a hardware store. Scratch that. I don't remember what the part number was for this O-ring, but they did have this exact O-ring at a hardware store. But the bottom line is you just need O-rings around the base of each injector. These are AC O-rings, they'll work fine. All this is doing is sealing the pressure. So Supercharger makes boost. That boost needs to stay in the compression chambers. If you don't have an O-ring here, the boost is going to leak out of the injectors. And then you'll probably also have an issue with vacuum sucking past the injectors into the combustion chamber as possible. So this is a tight seal between the intake manifold and the injector. So these are vital when you install your injectors. So I think I got this one out of the A013 bin, this one here. Those look pretty close. They don't have to be exact, obviously, but as long as they fit tight and they're not falling off, that's really all you need to know. So I'm going to put the new ones in, and then we'll move on to the passenger side. Alright, one last thing. These injectors, like I said, come with super lube here. This is just synthetic grease. Assuming it's definitely going to be safe to put on the bottom of the injector here. You got to be careful up here, though, because you don't want any of that lube going into the injector. I don't know if it's compatible or if it'll break up or what, but you got to be careful with stuff like that. So you also don't want the O-ring to rip like I mentioned earlier, so be careful with that. So I'd probably put just a dab on the O-ring and wipe it around on each of them, and then they're good to go, get installed. So this part's pretty important. I just wanted to show it. I've got all the injectors dropped down there, and you can see they're loose. I mean, they don't stick in there. They're not firmly, pressed in there. They just kind of loosely sit in the ports. And then that O-ring that we showed you earlier, that's kind of when this rail pushes down in the injectors, that O-ring seats and then seals the injector against the intake manifold. So we've got them all lined up where we want them to be. And remember, we've got our spacers here essentially glued to the manifold, so that's one less thing to worry about. And then all we have to do at this point, if I can maneuver this camera somewhere to be able to see this, I will try my best without destroying anything. Okay, I think that's okay right there. Yeah, so you can kind of see the injectors down there, the yellow. So what I need to do at this point is lift up the rail, and by now it's very light. I mean, there's nothing really, no forces exerted on the rail one way or other. So I need to line up the rail. I'm going to start up front because that's what I can see. Just the holes that the injectors go into. And what we're going to do is just gently seat it on top of them. And we're going to check that all four are lined up. Oh, look at that. And it just very smoothly pushes down onto the injectors because we put that super lube on the top O-rings. So it just slides right on them. And then we're just going to position the injectors so these plugs are easy access. So they just pop right on the front, like that. Boom, done. Just like this. Boom, done. Okay, and then what you want to do is basically wiggle the rail around a little bit, left and right, in and out, up and down. Make sure they're fully seated, they're not going anywhere. And then after that's done is when you put in your bolts. And you can just barely see up here where my finger is, there's a bolt going in. And then the back bolt, and this will just finalize the positions of the injectors where they're at. Make sure no funny business goes on when there we go. Make sure no funny business is going on when you're tightening and something doesn't pop loose or, come out of place or whatever. So just hand tighten these, and that's it. All the injectors are in. Boom. And then obviously, when you start the car, please look for leaks. Make sure none of your injectors are spraying fuel because you don't want your car to burn down. But that's it. They're all in. I'm just going to tighten the screws in fully with the ratchet. But you'll see how nice these... Here, I'll show you on this one. Hold on. You see how beautiful this new injector clip is? Like, it's brand new. Not zero miles, a couple hundred miles. But like I said, and I have another video of my LS. I know people that just like replace the plugs, but when you can get this whole harness for very cheap, why don't you just do the whole thing? So we'll just do one satisfying click here, and then we'll finally move on to the passenger side. Ready? Yeah. Here's the passenger side. It's a little bit easier because there's less here, especially with the tube out of the way for the supercharger, the intake tube. So you got 1, 2, 3 injectors, all very accessible right here. And then the bolts. This pipe, I think you had to hammer down a little bit to clear the bolt. And the only difference on this side, you have a 10mm bolt here for the water pipe that you have to remove because you need a little bit of play to get that back bolt out. And then again, the back injector is going to be a pain because it's just so far down there. But we're going to use the same tactic to lift up the rail, push it down, and then pull it out with a needle nose. But these front three should be super easy just to pull them out. So let me get them out and then I'll be back. Okay, got the injectors back in, relatively easy, same as the other side. But the belt is on, so I'm just put on the remaining pipes and then start it up and see if we have any leaks. If not, take it for test drive. Alright, as far as this piping goes, you got to get this pipe on first because you have clearance issue on the stud, which I had to cut short. So this strut stud, you got to cut it. You want to start here with your T-bolt on the supercharger, because this silicone coupler is fixed. Like, it is what it is. This is where it goes, and you can't do much adjustments. Now, this pipe also has to be as far forward as it can because it's coming in contact with this bracket, supercharger bracket right here. If you see, right now there's 0 space. So what we have to do is make sure this pipe is all the way forward, which it is, but then we're going to have to turn it. And then also, soapy water is your friend. Put that on all your hoses. It'll make your life a lot easier. So now we have to work with this pipe and then pull it forward. Kind of twist it and turn it so it clears this. As you can see, pull it this way into here, lock it into there. Whew, so I'll get that done. Okay, here's our gap now. We've got a little bit of gap, a couple millimeters. But you'll see by locking it into this hose here, and also the blow-off valve hose here, we're pulling it. It's by default going to pull it this way, away from that bracket. So hopefully you didn't forget any clamps. Now we can go ahead, tighten this worm clamp here, this one, and then this one, and then finally stick the blow-off valve on these 2 pipes here. And then we're done. But before that, I wanted to mention, I don't know if this is any other videos, but I've got the fuel pressure gauge hooked up right here. So it's nice and in the engine bay, you can see it. You have to make adjustments in the trunk because that's where the surge tank is with the regulator. So that's the only thing you gotta go back and forth. And then also the Innovate sender, the boost, wherever this boost line goes and all the wiring, the sender is actually inside the car. Before, the sender was out here and the heat destroyed it. So you want to get your sensor inside the car. And then lastly, here's the E85 sensor here, which has to go out here because that's where the fuel lines are. Kind of just tease into those a little bit, and then that's your wiring. That goes in the car as well. So now we will start the car after I get these clamps on. Okay, got everything in. Let's do a first startup, see what happens. So far so good. We've got no leaking fuel down here, nothing spraying out. Same with the passenger side. And our belt looks good. Grab another light. Alright, you can see our tensioner right there. You can see the belt. Everything's looking good. Everything sounds good. I think we're ready to take it for a test drive. But before we do, I've got my active exhaust here, my QTP. It basically opens the dump valve by the mufflers. You can hear the difference right there. I had a whole video on that, but then you close the valve and it's like stock again. So here we go, fuel's low, everything's looking good. I think we'll be alright on that amount of fuel, don't you? But let me move some cars and get this thing out of here, and we can go for a quick run, see how it runs. Alright, road test time. We've got the gauge in the glove box, which shows lambda, 85% in the upper right, lower left is vacuum, and then fuel temperature is lower right. And then we've got the laptop here with Techstream running. We have a Mongoose cable, so we have real-time data logging. What this allows us to do is monitor and log all factory functions just like OEM. So you have your not correct KCLV is in there, 26.4. Any kind of fuel trims are going to be in there. Misfires, so this is how you would see which cylinder is misfiring if you're having issues. Misfire counts right here, and then the record button's in the lower right. Alright, so we're gonna go. I had to get gas. I was so low the car it wouldn't even move, it would die. So here we go. We're just on a couple gallons of pump gas, so nothing crazy. See, I put in 2 gallons, I think, 2 or 2.5 gallons, and low fuel light's on again, so we were pretty low. I don't want to get too crazy because there's not much E85 in there. But if anything comes up here, so it says cylinder 1 misfire count 1. So that might be important in the future just for data logging sakes to see if something's going on with that cylinder or that injector, if we get another injector code. So I'm going to run around the block here, just do some light driving and then see what the data log shows. It's also nice with the stock exhaust with the valve. You can just close it, and then late at night if you're driving around or doing any kind of diagnosing, you're not waking up any neighbors. So that's a nice little benefit. I can't really get on it until I fill up with the 85 again tomorrow to really see if the problem still exists, but as far as the belt goes, that's good. That's still on there. Oh, we got some deer running across the road. I want to smash a deer. That would be bad. Yeah, I mean, it drives fine, so we'll see how it is in boost. But for now, it's fine. And I think that's kind of the conclusion of the video. Covered a lot of information. If there's anything else I can follow up on, I'll just have to do another video tomorrow on it when it's light out and I get more gas. It's currently not in sport mode. There we go. Yeah, I'll review the logs. Maybe I'll add a little addendum after this, but I think we're pretty well set. So thanks for watching. See ya.